Ben Kentish on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
12:34, your calls coming in already on what you just heard from Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Come to those in just a couple of minutes' time. First, Simon Marks joins us again, LBC's Washington correspondent, to reflect, Simon, on an absolutely incredible 40-minute press conference between those two leaders.
Utterly astounding, Ben. The biggest development in the Middle East since 1948, certainly the biggest development for 77 years. An American president making it clear that he wants the United States to seize control of the Gaza Strip, clear all the rubble, clear all the debris, and turn it into a US-owned territory that he clearly foresees being something like Dubai, looking out on the Mediterranean shoreline. He spoke at times during this press conference as nothing much more than a development man who sees a huge opportunity to make an enormous amount of money on that Mediterranean shoreline. This was his answer to a question that was asked of him by Kelly O'Donnell of NBC News. She wanted to know by what authority did he think he had the right to send American forces in to take over Gaza?
I do see a long-term ownership position, and I see it bringing great stability to that part of the Middle East and maybe the entire Middle East. And everybody I've spoken to, this was not a decision made lightly. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent in a really magnificent area that nobody would know. Nobody can look because all they see is death and destruction and rubble and demolished buildings falling all over.
He spoke of this being a wonderful location for the people who live there to enjoy. But as you heard at the end of that press conference, Caitlin Collins of CNN pushed him to explain who he meant by the people who live there, because he'd made it absolutely clear earlier in the day that he foresees Gaza being depopulated. He seems to plan to force 2 million Palestinians out of the territory. He wants Egypt and Jordan to agree to take them, even though King Abdullah of Jordan and President al-Sisi of Egypt have indicated they have no intention of opening their country's borders to accept those Palestinians. Donald Trump said they will change their mind, and anyway, there are lots of other countries that he didn't unmask who he claims are lining up for the opportunity to resettle all of those Palestinians, and he said they would have no right of return to Gaza. So given that he had said they have no right of return to Gaza, Caitlin Collins of CNN wondered who were all of these people that were going to be living in this brand new American-controlled, American-owned and American-developed Gaza Strip.
To envision a world, people living there, the world's people. I think you'll make that into an international, unbelievable place. I think the potential in the Gaza Strip is unbelievable. And I think the entire world, representatives from all over the world will be there, and they'll live there. Palestinians also. Palestinians will live there. Many people will live there. But they've tried the other, and they've tried it for decades and decades and decades. It's not going to work. It didn't work. It will never work.
It's absolutely apparent that he has no intention of foreseeing a situation in which the 2 million Palestinians who currently live there are temporarily shipped out of the Gaza Strip and then brought back once American refurbishment is complete. Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, the first foreign leader to visit Donald Trump's White House since the inauguration 15 days ago, looked like the cat who had stolen the cream.
Your willingness to think outside the box with fresh ideas will help us achieve all these goals. And I've seen you do this many times. You cut to the chase. You see things others refuse to see. You say things others refuse to say. And after the jaws drop, people scratch their heads and they say, you know, he's right.
So I think there is no question now, and the day has progressed rapidly from earlier in the day when Donald Trump was merely positing the idea of Gaza being depopulated. It was only at this press conference that he actually revealed that his territorial ambitions for the United States to expand now go way beyond Greenland and the Panama Canal or turning Canada into America's 51st state. He wants Gaza to become part of the United States, and of course the suspicion in the room and elsewhere was that he actually wants to turn it into a place that ultimately many Israelis will live in. The question now for America's allies around the world, including of course Keir Starmer and Foreign Secretary David Lammy, is how on earth are they going to react to this proposal? The American president absolutely determined now that this is the new cornerstone of his policy in the Middle East, alongside his desire to see normalization of ties between Israel and Saudi Arabia, to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. He actually wants to own a piece of Mediterranean beachfront property and call it part of America. That is a huge challenge for all of America's allies and partners. And also one has to wonder how on earth they are viewing this in Moscow and Beijing, where, of course, President Xi Jinping covets getting his hands on Taiwan, and Vladimir Putin has already shown that he covets getting his hands at least on Ukraine and perhaps on some of the other former Soviet states as well. Donald Trump making it totally clear tonight that when he spoke at his inauguration 2 weeks ago about emulating the presidency of William McKinley, the president of the United States at the turn of the last century, who brought Guam, Hawaii, the Philippines, even tried to annex Cuba into America's orbit, he absolutely sees the territorial expansion of the United States to lie at the heart of his foreign policy ambitions, and that includes territorial ambitions in, if you can believe it, the Gaza Strip.
Simon, thank you very, very much indeed. Simon Marks, LBC's Washington correspondent, reflecting on one of the most historic press conferences I think, well, certainly I have ever seen. Donald Trump hammering the final nail into the coffin of the two-state solution, if one was ever feasible at this point in time. Quite incredible. Not often you hear a world leader say something that could quite possibly change the outcome, change the history of a region, indeed the entire globe. And yet I think that is what we've witnessed tonight.